is a Gen X revolver.
So, Your Honor, I'm going to object.
All right, first of all, everybody's nervous because you have not demonstrated to us that they are unloaded. So before you start showing us the weapons, make sure they're unloaded, including that one that you just touched.
Okay, Judge Mary Marlowe Summer scolds a firearms expert for not handling his own weapon safely. And moments later, he points the gun at the judge. I'm Imran Ansari, and we're taking you through the top 8 moments from the defense's case in the Rust movie set shooting trial. The man you just watched was Frank Louis Blair Kookie III. He told the jury that he's been shooting almost from birth as he demonstrated how to properly decock a gun.
Now first, the finger has to stay off of the trigger and outside of the trigger guard, no matter what. That's the essential rule of safety. The firearm is cocked with your thumb, you see. Finger's still outside of the trigger. No one touches any trigger. This is now a gun capable of being fired. Now, the first thing I do here is put my thumb on top of it. If I'm not real strong, I put 2 thumbs on. Notice my finger is still completely off the trigger. I then slowly, gently pull the trigger and lower the hammer onto the cartridge. I then back it up to its safe position.
The defense team for armor Hannah Gutierrez Reed argues that actor and producer Alec Baldwin did not follow safety protocol when a live round was discharged from his prop gun on the Rust film set in October 2021, killing cinematographer Helena Hutchins. Gutierrez Reed faces involuntary manslaughter charges as prosecutors accuse her of loading the deadly round into Baldwin's prop gun.
Did you conclude whether Hannah was provided with enough time to inventory and inspect dummy rounds and blanks?
We came to the conclusion that she was not afforded time to conduct her duties to the best of her diligence.
And who didn't give her enough time to do that?
She had been instructed by Gabrielle Pickle to focus on other tasks.
The Armor's defense team argues that Gutierrez Reed is not to be blamed for the deadly incident. Safety Inspector Lorenzo Montoya was the first witness in the defense's case, and he told the jury that management above Gutierrez Reed was at fault.
Did you determine whether Rust had any process to ensure that live rounds were not brought onto set?
We determined that Rust did not have any specific processes or procedures to prevent that possibility.
And why was it that that was on the employer, in your opinion, versus the armor?
In that manner, the employer is asking an individual to perform multiple safety-related functions for them, while also telling them that they're spending too much time engaging in those safety-related functions and need to devote more time to other duties. And on that matter, we determined that to be maybe a managerial decision.
The defense continued to attack Rust film production by calling a chief for the Occupational Health and Safety Bureau. Following an inspection, the jury heard how much the production company was ultimately fined.
And what was the amount of the fine that was levied against Rust Production?
The initial proposed penalty was 130-some thousand. I don't recall the exact amount, but it was 130-some thousand dollars.
Okay, and how is that amount chosen?
It's based on the statutory maximum provided in the OSHA Act.
So was Rust levied the statutory maximum fine provided in the OSHA Act for its violations of workplace safety?
Yes.
In addition to shining a spotlight on Rust's management, the defense team hired a private investigator to evaluate how law enforcement handled the situation after the fact. Here's what he had to say about the deadly encounter.
This case is also a little unusual in the sense that it wasn't really a who done it. It was a why done it and how done it. By that I mean you don't know anybody there. You go out as an investigator, you're trying to find out what happened. Was there an argument on set? Was somebody angry? Does somebody have a mental break? Is there some underlying relationship that may have been the root cause of the shooting? You don't know. And that's why an investigation is conducted to find out those things, and it's also to trace how that firearm came to be where it came to be.
The defense's private investigator told the jury that law enforcement focused too much on the defendant and not enough on the chain of command before her. He also criticized officials on evidence and witness preservation following the shooting.
First responding deputies, their job is first preservation of life, and then it is preservation of evidence and identifying witnesses and possible suspects. In this case, it was known very quickly who the shooter was, but it wasn't known who the witnesses were. And those witnesses, once they were identified, they should have been segregated so they couldn't talk among themselves.
Now let me stop you right there. When you initially, as a law enforcement homicide detective or somebody going on the scene, you identify the shooter, what in your opinion is one of the first things that you should do?
Well, the first thing you do is put someone with that individual, segregate them from everyone else. You also want to, those individuals, since you are preserving evidence, you also want to secure their cell phones.
Now in this case, in the materials you reviewed, did it appear to you that Mr. Baldwin was segregated?
Not at all.
And along with the conclusion you just stated, did it appear that his cell phone was taken from him?
No, it was not.
Mr. Elliott, did it appear to you that at any time at the scene that day, Mr. Baldwin was segregated?
He was not.
Elliott spent a lengthy time under defense questioning as he picked apart the investigation. But the state had their own chance to challenge his findings on cross-examination. The prosecutor chose to divert away from law enforcement's response and instead focused on the defendant's own statements to police.
So, sir, based on Ms. Gutierrez's statements, would it be her own statements to law enforcement, would it be reasonable for law enforcement to believe that State's Exhibit 62, this box here in the foreground, is indeed the box she was pulling from because she said that? Wouldn't that be reasonable for law enforcement to believe that?
Yes, it would.
And you understand that that box was determined to have a live round?
Yes.
And you agree with me that that box that had the live round matches this photo that was shown to Detective Hancock during the November 9th interview. You understand that?
Yes, I do.
Sir, do you still have questions and concerns about how the live rounds got on set?
I do.
You don't think that law enforcement can simply take Ms. Gutierrez's word for it, that this is her box and this is the one she was pulling from and this is the one where live rounds were found?
Yes, but what we don't know is how many times those boxes were unloaded and reloaded. Every time that one of the firearms were loaded with dummy rounds, they came out of a box. They didn't necessarily go back into the same box.
Do you agree with me, sir, that there are certain things in homicide investigations that just simply can't be controlled for? You agree with that?
Oh, absolutely.
The last witness for the defense was film director P.J. Pesh, and he talked about the responsibilities of the armorer and the prop master on a film set. Here's what he had to say.
In your experience, have you worked and seen the interaction between prop masters and armorers?
I have.
And can you tell the jury, in your experience generally, how they interact, who's in charge of the firearms and who's in charge of the ammunition, and then what the prop master role is?
Well, the prop master, more often than not, hires the armorer because that's a subset of that department. But the armorer is in charge of all ammunition, all firearms, maintaining them, keeping them safe, and inventorying the ammunition.
With those duties and responsibilities, would you believe it to be important in your experience to accord the armor adequate time to do those duties?
Yes.
And would it be important to accord adequate resources for that armor to do those duties?
Yes.
If there is a scenario where the armor is dealing with a gun-heavy set, not having those resources, who would you expect to assist that armor in getting those?
Props.
The trial is coming to a close, and a jury will have to decide if Hannah Gutierrez Reed is at fault for the death of Helena Hutchins, or if there are bigger players to blame from the Rust film production. Either way, we'll keep you in the loop on everything related to the case out of Santa Fe, New Mexico, from gavel to gavel. You're watching Law and Crime.